Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. Who we have with us today is Sandee Sgarlata, and she's from Virginia, probably a couple of miles away from where I live. We just found that out. So I'm happy to have her on the show, and she's what you would call a happiness coach. And we'll find out about what she does, where she's been, where she's headed, all in her own words. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. Oh, I hope I said that right. Rajiv.
You got it right.
No, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. And yes, I think that's so ironic that we live about 5 miles from each other.
Yes, it is. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Yeah, so my background is very diverse. I've done a lot of different things. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. So as a teenager, really from the age of 7 on, I was a competitive figure skater. So when it came time to decide what I was going to do at the end of, after high school, the only thing I ever wanted to do is to be in the Ice Capades. So my senior year of high school, I auditioned. I made it into the Ice Capades. I was so excited. And 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, I got a letter saying, "Congratulations, you're on a waiting list." And then it was like, okay, now what? Because I had never considered going to college, ever. It just wasn't even in my radar. And I think it's just because like my brothers didn't go to college, my parents didn't go to college. And, I just never even considered it. And ironically enough, my father, when I was asking about what classes to take in high school, he's like, "Take all the secretarial classes. You can be a secretary." And so sure enough, I did 1 semester of college at a fashion institute. I found it in the back of a magazine, went for 1 month, did not like it. And I put my typing skills to use and became a pretty decent legal secretary in Washington, D.C. And that kind of started my career in business. I ended up managing a startup company, was there for 4 years. But then in my backyard in Reston, Virginia, an ice rink opened up and I had an opportunity. So I started coaching skating. And I just figured, because I was not a great competitive skater, I never made it out of my region. I was good, but not at the level, that you need to be to really make it to US nationals and things like that. So I just figured I'd teach group lessons to boys and girls and just share my love of the sport. And in January, February 1994, unfortunately, Tanya Harding tried to take out Nancy Kerrigan. And as unfortunate as that was, I all of a sudden had 50 little girls that wanted to be a figure skater because it put figure skating into the limelight. So I started coaching skaters and all these private lessons. I ended up quitting my job, became a full-time coach. I had one student who believed in my abilities. He was in rental skates and was doing these jumps that he just taught himself how to do. His mom was not on board with him being a skater. So I had an old pair of skates that happened to fit him. I painted them black and I started coaching him. A few years later, I ended up taking him to US nationals and watched him win his first gold medal at his first international competition. And all of a sudden, here I was, a US national and international figure skating coach against all odds, because I didn't have any impressive medals or titles under my belt. So I did that for a while. I ended up starting an IT recruiting company. And so once, if you remember, in March of 2001, the whole .com industry burst in the DC metro area. And so I had taken this business to 7 figures in less than 18 months. And it was a 7-figure company for 2 years. And then that happened and everything just stopped. And I was just one of thousands of business casualties that, it just didn't make sense to even try to keep it going. My last contractor went off board in January 2003. At that time, my son was 2 years old. So I just stayed home. But I was never one to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm not crafty. I love to work. And so I started life coaching, and I became certified to be a life coach in 2004. And so I published my first book in 2009. It was a 2-time award-winning novel. Went through a divorce in 2011, had to go back to work. So I went back into recruiting, because recruiting, I'm coaching people, I'm helping people find a job. And that's what drives me, is to help people. So my second book was released in February of this year. And I'm pivoting back toward my passion, which is helping people. And it's just such a passion of mine. And so I'm working my way back into where I need to be, my plan D.
So you're known as a happiness coach, right? So
Yes.
where did that come about?
So, well, it's because the title of my book is Happiness Solved. And you see them behind me too. And so I started writing this book in 2014. And it was actually a project of mine when I was finishing my bachelor's degree, because I did end up going back. I did finish my bachelor's degree finally. And it was just more of a personal, it's just something I had to do for myself. So I started writing. It was a project for one of my business classes. And I started writing it, put it aside, ended up, once I took my son to college in August of 2019, it was just like the floodgates opened up. And that's the kind of writer I am. I'm inspired to write, and I can't stop once it just starts. It's like I'm downloading. Mm-hmm. And the book was all about my journey. It's a self-improvement book, but there's 4 chapters where I get very vulnerable and talk about my journey over the past 50 plus years I've been on this earth. And everything I talk about in this book is how I have lived my life for 30 years. And it's all about learning how to get back to a place of happiness and peace in your heart when life happens, because life happens while we're busy making other plans. It always does. And, everything in this book is how I live my life. And it's also a workbook in the back of the book. There's all these exercises that I highly recommend people do for 30 days minimum, because that is how you create lasting change in your life, is by constantly doing these steps. And it's about mindset transformation, because we all have stress in our lives. We have negative thoughts. We're critical of ourselves. We're critical of other people. And that all those things are okay. They're natural, normal human reactions, responses, feelings, emotions. It's all normal. But the difference is what you do with it afterwards, and how so that you can be able to shift those thoughts and feelings and be able to get back to a place of peace and happiness.
So you mentioned that, around 2004 is when you actually got into life coaching. So what's the evolution process for you? How has it been since then to now?
It's been really great. I mean, my whole journey really started 30 years ago, when I hit rock bottom with a drug abuse, and ended up having years and years of therapy. So I was very familiar with the whole process. I didn't want to be a therapist, but I wanted to work with people and just help them take their life to the next level. A therapist is very different in it. They're helping people with deeper levels of issues that a life coach is not trained to work with. So what I like is helping people get from here to here. And it's just been an amazing journey. And, what I really learned was, as a skating coach, you're like these kids' mom. You're their second mom. And when you have kids that come back after they've graduated from college, and my student who I took to US Nationals and international competition, he came back to me years after he graduated from college, and he was working on his master's degree. He already has his master's now from Stanford University. He's hugely successful. He had ended up, let me just add, because I'm very proud of him, he ended up being an alternate for the Olympics as a pair skater. So that was just, so proud of him. But he came back to me years later and just said, you had such an impact on my life. Mm-hmm. And when you hear people, it's just so rewarding, because I feel like that's what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to help people make huge transformations in their life. And but the thing that which really interesting that I've learned, everybody already has it within them. It's just we forget about it, because life gets to us, and life tears us down, and other people tear us down, and but everybody has the answers within them. So a coach is just helping them find the answers that are already within them.
So you mentioned you also host a podcast. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So my podcast is called Happiness Solved. There's a theme there, right? So yeah, I started recording episodes in January of this year. The first two were released the last Friday of February of this year. So they're released every Friday. They're on all the major, podcast networks. It's an audio only podcast. And so what I do is I convert it to a video and post it on my Happiness Solved YouTube channel. And it's all about sharing people's stories of how they were able to face something really challenging and difficult, and how they were able to get back to a place of peace and happiness. So I talk with people of all walks of life, a lot of authors. I've talked to celebrities. I actually just interviewed the founder of the Happiness Hall of Fame. And that episode is going to be released on Christmas Eve, which is kind of neat. So yeah, it's just been such a great, fun thing for me. Back in 2008, I started doing a blog talk radio show. It's still out there. If you go to Blog Talk Radio, it's called Everything Mind, Body, Spirit. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I just couldn't keep up with it because I had to go back to work full time. So I was approached by some colleagues of mine, and they're like, you really need to get back into this. And I'm like, okay, so I just absolutely love it. My podcast has been ranked number 11 out of the top 80 happiness podcasts, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
And so I'm just really looking forward to it. And like I found your podcast, there's all of these services. And so it's really wonderful because I have people coming to me. I've actually reached out to people and said, I'm not scheduling any more interviews for this year, because the ones that I have scheduled from now, and I have 21 interviews coming up, those are going to be the first 21 weeks of 2022. And I'm like, you know what? I think my last interview is November 1st, and I'm just going to be done, get through the holidays, not have to worry about interviewing or finding guests, and then I can pick it back up next year. But it's just been really fun, and I just can't wait to see where it goes.
Awesome. Yeah. I was actually on your website, and I was reading the story about how you found out about your brother's death. So you've had incidents in your life that could have taken you down the gloom and doom path, but you decided to be optimistic and come out of it. And now here you are coaching others on how to find their own happiness. What do you believe is that one thing, or maybe there are multiple things, that really helped you hold fast onto that pillar of optimism?
In all honesty, because I'm going to be real here, because I'm a very authentic person. I was abusing cocaine. I had just gotten engaged to my now ex-husband, and I had no choice. He was like, he did some tough love, and he's like, either you stop using them or I'm out of here. So yeah, for the first few years, it was not what I wanted to do, because when you're in an addiction, there's so much denial and shame. How could I become addicted to something? My older brother, the main reason he died was because he was abusing drugs. Drugs didn't kill him. What killed him is he fell out of a window because he was high on drugs. So I had always been steadfast. I am never doing drugs. And I had a very weak moment in my early 20s. And thank God it only lasted a couple of years. And but it took a few years of therapy, going to 12-step programs, where I really embraced it and was then doing it for myself, because I wasn't doing it for myself at first. Because I had PTSD that I didn't even know about. And when you have a tragedy, and especially it's because I was so young when I learned that my brother died, my whole world came crumbling down. My mother went into a deep depression. I lost her for about 10 years. I kind of had to raise myself, and I was on a good path. And like I said, it was just because when you don't deal with those deep feelings of grief and pain and loss, eventually it is going to catch up with you. And I was no different. You can't go down that path. And of course, nobody thinks, I'm not a drug addict. Of course, me? No, of course not. But no, I'm no different. It happened to me. And, and a lot of people won't come off of the drugs unless they make the choice themselves. I didn't want to lose, my husband. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this until I love myself enough that I'm going to do it for me. Because it took a few years to get back to a place of self-love. Yeah.
Right. And then, you mentioned that you were coaching, then you went back into a full-time job, and then you actually resurrected your coaching career as well. How did that come about?
So it all came about because back to when I was in that business class, I had to create a company. And the company I created involved coaching. It involved having group coaching and building a team of coaches underneath of me. So this year, after I released the book and started recording the podcast, I started working on my group coaching programs. And it's hard to sustain as a coach if you're only doing one-on-one coaching. Okay, it's hard to sustain it because you can only talk to so many people every day, right? So studies have shown that group coaching is more effective because you have the energy of the group and people can learn from other people. So I made the decision to put group coaching programs together, and that would be a way to get back into it on a full-time basis. Because right now, it's even though I have programs that are running, I can still keep my other job because I can easily do both until I'm at a point where, if I reach a point where it's interfering with my full-time position, I have to honor my company because I've been there for over 5 years and I would not sacrifice them, because I'm committed to their success. So we'll see, but right now, as long as it's manageable, I'm going to keep doing it because I love my job too. I love helping people find a job. It's so rewarding for me. So yeah, so that's how that all came about from that one business class I took back in 2014.
Awesome. And where do your clients find you?
They can find me on Facebook, which is I have a coaching page, which is at Coach Sandee Sgarlata. My personal page is Sandee Sgarlata Addison because I am remarried now. Instagram is at Coach Sandee Sgarlata. My website is sandeesgarlata.com.
Awesome. And in terms of the programs that you offer, could you talk us through that?
Sure. So you'll never guess this, right? But I have Happiness Solved for Entrepreneurs. And that is a program where I use my business knowledge that I have and coaching and mindset transformation, where I'm helping small business owners and entrepreneurs take their company to 6-7 figures and beyond. And in that program, I go through all sorts of mindset transformation, getting them clear on their vision, helping them decide where do they want to go. We talk about branding. I teach them how to become a subject matter expert and use the media to their advantage to help them grow their business. Sales, we go into lead generation. So there's every single thing that you can imagine is in this program. And it's constantly going to be evolving. And then I have Happiness Solved for Everyone, which takes my book to another level. Here's the thing. Nobody's going to read my book or anybody else's book and instantly be happy. And you have to do the work. You have to do the exercises. Just like if you want to lose weight, there's certain things you've got to do. If you're trying to, improve your tennis game or your golf game, whatever it is, you have to practice it. And changing your mindset is no different. So my Happiness Solved for Everyone is a lower price point program. I'm keeping the prices low because I want it to be accessible for everybody. because I'm on a mission to bring happiness back to the world. And so it's a group coaching option, which is only group coaching, which is just 1 hour a week. And then you have the whole online program, which you have lifetime access to. And then there's another option where you could get a couple of one-on-one sessions with me as well, to kind of, or extra, some extra hand holding, accountability. That's what it's all about. Because a lot of us, you have good intentions, you purchase a book and it has a workbook and you do it for a couple of days, and then you get busy, and then next thing you know, a month has gone by and you forgot to finish it, or and that's just human nature. So it's a good way for people, if you're really serious about creating the life of your dreams. Group coaching is the way to go, whether you work with me or another coach.
Awesome. And in terms of your books, where can we find them?
They can be found on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I'm going to be opening up a portal on my website where people can purchase signed autographs, because I have like 100 books sitting in my office upstairs. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. It's both soft cover, hardcover, Kindle version. And I just got an email last night that my audiobook is complete. I just have to listen to it and approve it. And that'll be out there also anywhere you find Audible books. And the woman who I selected to do the reading has such an amazing voice. When she auditioned for me and she read the first part of my story, where I describe in detail the day that I found out my brother died, I started crying listening to her read my story. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm really excited to get that out there, because I know for so many people, they don't have time to read, and audiobook is just easier. I know I love audiobooks myself. So that'll be out there soon.
Awesome. Well, Sandee, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story, sharing your programs, as well as what you do. Before I let you go, one takeaway for the listeners, anything that you'd like to share?
Okay, so happiness is a choice. Happiness is a choice. If I could just shout that out on the rooftop, happiness is a choice. It's a decision that you need to make every single day of your life, and every minute of every day. You can choose it, and you can get back there no matter what curveballs life throws you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and wish you the very best with your new book as well as your programs.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. I appreciate it.